It's like he forgot what he was doing was illegal. And it's total self-snitching. And every one of these videos, every one of these Instagram posts, every one of these, you gotta check in or it's gonna get hot, all that is gonna bite him in the
Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. Bruce Rivers, he's the criminal lawyer. And what he do? And it's gonna react to all the self-snitching.
Hi, this is Bruce Rivers. Welcome to another fun-filled episode of Criminal Lawyer Reacts. I'm Bruce Rivers, your very own board-certified criminal defense lawyer. Today we are reacting to the Rollin 60's indictment in L.A. Rollin 60's is a gang out in the gang. It's a club. It's not a gang. It is a bunch of people who are getting indicted for Rico in the L.A. area. And before we get to that, though, first of all, I can't remember who gave me this, but somebody gave me, I think her card is here. Mary W. Mary, you crocheted these nice coasters for me. Thank you. And they match the painting behind me, which is really nice. And it's just a nice gesture to talk about Michael. And she sent a nice prayer. And I got some other cards here today, too, about 3 or 4 cards. Every day I'm getting about 3 or 4 cards with well wishes about Michael, the former content genius, my son who passed away in November from a drug overdose. And I'm telling you, if you know somebody like that, step in, do whatever you can. Don't stop, don't quit, don't give them a lot of shit for being an addict. Be as supportive as you can. And if you have to do an intervention, do an intervention. If you have to, commit him. Fucking commit him. If Michael was in jail right now for doing drugs, he'd be alive. So sometimes that helps. And I didn't realize how bad it was until it was too late. But that is what it is. So just remember that it's really important to support anybody that you know that's struggling with addiction. And sometimes it just means giving him a meal. One of the last things I did with Michael was I washed his hair because he thought bugs were all over him. And I was just trying to be kind to him. And he was 6 feet tall, 127 pounds when he died. I don't mean to keep bringing it up, but he's the reason I'm even here doing this. And so, anyway, and then also we have some news. Grandma's still in the basement, and she's going to probably resurface around April 1st. So keep an eye out for Grandma, who's in the basement, doing her thing. So we're talking about the Rollin 60's. Here they had the Rollin 30's. That was an association of fellas who were in and it's the streets. It's the number of the streets. The Rollin 60's. And Big U, it's in South Central Los Angeles, and it kind of started in 85 or thereabouts. And Big U is one of the figures in the industry who came directly from the street, according to Boss Valtown. But he is from the Arlington and Slauson, which is known as the 60's territory. The Arlington gang was led by Big U's cousin Chili Capone, and as time went on, Arlington guys would call themselves Rollin 60's as they were from the same area. Now here's the thing. Big U and Chili did not start the gang, but they were like the second generation. These are not people to mess with, and they all have, a teardrop, not necessarily a teardrop, but they have earned one anyway. You know what that means. And Big U, who's like their main guy, claims not to have any directly he said he didn't directly join the 60's, but that the affiliation was a natural one as he was an AG member, Arlington gang member, and he built his reputation on being an excellent fighter, learning martial arts, growing up, and possessing natural leadership skills. And when Chili Capone died, they all die young, right? He became the next leader of the AG's or Arlington gang. And as the years went on, that just kind of morphed into the Rollin 60's. So they've indicted about 20 guys. I'm doing one right now where they've indicted well over 45 guys. And they're continuing to indict people. They're pulling people out of prison who are serving 30-year sentence on a homicide to indict them on a murder case. So they never get out. I'm telling you, this is not... If you're sitting there thinking, hey, it's a cool idea to be in a gang, or if you're thinking, I have to do this, think again, because this is happening all over the country. It happened in Atlanta, and we know what happened there. prosecutor fucked that case up royally, and Young Thug had just amazing lawyers, and they didn't give up, which is just amazing. As the crack epidemic came in, the focus shifted to getting money, which brought more enemies meant more firearms, and the gangs now had unlimited access. Big U would also rob dealers, and after attempting to rob an undercover officer who posed as a dealer, he was sent to prison for 23 years, serving only 12 before going to prison. Big U managed to corrupt in 1990, who would go on to sign with Death Row Records after Big U went to prison. All these guys go to prison. You're in a gang, guess what? You're going to prison or you're going to die, one of the two. And it doesn't matter how long and usually it's either for large drug crimes, and now it's Rico, which they can take any little thing and say it was in furtherance of the conspiracy. So what's a conspiracy? You remember what we said. It's an agreement between two or more people and an act to do a criminal act, and then an act in furtherance of that conspiracy. They have a motto in the Rolling 60s, and the motto is, "You not 60s until you smoke one." You know what that means, to smoke on your ops? We've talked about that. Imagine wanting to be part of an organization that has a motto basically saying, you ain't a real one unless you backdoor and kill your brother. Example, what happened to Nipsey Hussle and, Sandman Niggas. The amount of fame and clout Nipsey brought to them only for a tweaked out J-Cat from his hood to kill him. Oh, that's from the Boy Mess, whoever that is. And some of this stuff is just put together by our team here, and we're really trying to highlight, and what I'm trying to do is highlight the dangers of being in a gang and the dangers of not building a good life. It might seem like a good idea at the time because you might be intimidated, you might have this, you might have that, and you might not have a choice. You might think you don't have a choice. Find a mentor. If you're 10 years old, you got to have somebody that's a strong, if you're a 10-year-old black kid in the hood, in the inner city, if you're, whether it's Chicago, LA, Minneapolis, or New York, Detroit, Houston, Dallas, Jacksonville, Florida. I mean, there's over 50 unsolved homicides in the last 5 years. And it's probably grown since then because that's an old statistic. But if you're a 10, 12, 13-year-old kid, find somebody close to you, that's not in the shit. That's not, somebody that's solid. Because there are men out there, just solid men. And gravitate towards them. Every day build with that. Listen to your mother, listen to your auntie, listen to your sisters, because they're not in that shit, and if they are, make other plans. I hate to sound like an old fucking white dude who doesn't know what he's talking about, but I see this every day. I see the aftermath of this shit because I'm a criminal defense lawyer. So I know what the fuck I'm talking about. I'm not just some Mr. Rogers dude putting on his fucking sneakers and his cardigan, sitting by my fake train and, trying to talk about shit I don't know anything about. So let's watch the press conference. And this is what I want you guys to take note of. They're mining social media to get you indicted.
Proven otherwise. Let me talk a little bit about Mr. Henley and the street gang here. As I said, Mr. Henley is a widely known leader within the Rollin 60's. He rose to prominence in that gang decades ago, and he has since been a fixture on the internet, talk shows, and podcasts, all things that law enforcement have looked at closely as part of this investigation.
Oh, gee. What did I tell you? He's on podcasts. He's, I like the fame. What did the mob fucking hate more than anything else? Notoriety, attention. They wanted everything quiet. Why do you think John Gotti, wound up where he was? Remember, he was the Dapper Don? It's no different than these guys. And why is that? They wanted it quiet because they didn't want to fucking make noise because the empty barrel is the loudest one.
He has maintained the image of an entertainment industry entrepreneur running a music label and of somebody who gives back to the community here in Los Angeles, funding a South LA-based charity, developing options, which purports to help at youth risk escape gang life and escape the perils of gangs in high crime areas. The facts.
Well, don't think for 1 minute that won't be part of the defense strategy.
The facts alleged in the complaint paint a very different picture. It is one of a murderer, a thief, a liar, and a cheat, and the criminals that enabled him. For example, Mr. Henley engaged in a murder of a musician signed to his label in 2021 and dumped the victim's body in Las Vegas off of the I-15 freeway. He then attempted to evade and obstruct the investigation into the murder, including ordering witnesses not to speak with law enforcement. Henley's criminal enterprise also engaged in other crimes, including transporting prostitutes across state lines, extorting strip clubs, marijuana dispensaries, and other businesses, and fraudulently applying for COVID loans.
So this sounds just like organized crime, does it not? That's how they're being treated.
In the form of a business relief loan. On that application, Mr. Henley falsely stated that his music label, Unique Music, operated at a $200,000 profit in 2019 and was entitled to government assistance, despite the reality that the company had operated at a loss and was ineligible for such relief. Finally, Mr. Henley is accused of embezzling.
Some of those document crimes are so easy to prove for the government, but the bigger picture is that they are part of an organization, and that is how the Rico part of it plays into it. And so it's an overt act in furtherance of a conspiracy.
Donations made by celebrities, professional athletes, and businesses to his charity, Developing Options, which, as I said, purports to give South LA at-risk youth alternatives to gang violence, drugs, and other criminal activity.
So if you have a charity like Donald Trump did and other people, you can't just take that, money and use it for your own purposes. And you ever hear that show, that Cars for Kids, 187, whatever the fuck that is. Remember that?
1877 Cars for Kids. KARS Cars for Kids.
I mean, I think that is just a total scam. I could be wrong, and that's just my opinion. I don't have anything to back it up, but it sounds like bullshit. I mean, they have, what do they have? They have got ads nationally, and you hear that ad all the time. Who believes that's just for kids? Nobody does. Stealing from their own charity to do whatever, and then, doing other things that are supposedly for and all of a sudden you're looking at your credibility when you get on the stand. It doesn't fly.
Henley used this charity as a front. He used it to conceal his fraudulent activities, his criminal enterprises activities, and evade detection from law enforcement. If convicted on the racketeering conspiracy, he and his co-conspirators face approximately a 20-year federal prison sentence. I want to thank our federal law enforcement partners, our state law enforcement partners who brought about the result here today. The Los Angeles Metropolitan Gang Task Force from the FBI. It's comprised of FBI agents, LAPD officers, IRS criminal investigation, the U.S. Department of Justice Inspector General's Office, Los Angeles Police Department, the North Las Vegas Police Department. This case is a great example of state and federal law enforcement working together to address harm from a criminal enterprise. I also want to thank our...
You hear all the organizations involved in this case? You get a lawyer involved. First of all, I guarantee you these guys don't have a lot of money. I mean, some might have a little bit of money, but certainly not anywhere near the resources that the federal government has. That's for damn sure. And not only that, you don't have the resources that all these different agencies that have specializations within their own departments, like the IRS, like the Postal Service, like the Gang Strike Force, like the U.S. Attorney's Office and the District Attorney's Office. So if you look at Operation Drawdown, you've got 19 there, and we're going to black out their names because I just don't think it's fair to plaster that shit all over the place when you haven't been convicted of anything yet. But look at the people up there. You got the IRS, you got the LAPD, you got the U.S. Attorney's Office, you've got Department of Justice. You've got all these different logos. Now, I'm going to read you from the indictment. In February 2021, FBI Los Angeles Metropolitan Task Force on Violent Gangs launched an investigation into Henley's criminal enterprise, the Big U Enterprise, and its association with the Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips street gang, the Rolling 60s, which the Los Angeles Metro Task Force Against Violent Gangs, began investigating in August of 2020. The Big U Enterprise is a mafia-like organization that utilizes Henley's stature and long-standing association with the Rolling 60s and other street gangs to intimidate businesses and individuals in Los Angeles. The Big U Enterprise is led by Henley, and you just heard about Henley. Henley is a self-admitted member and original gangster, or OG, of the Rolling 60s, a violent criminal street gang with associated sets in several other states. Henley is widely regarded as a leader within the Rolling 60s. Now, Eugene Henley, known as Big U, a.k.a. Unk, a.k.a. Draws, a.k.a. Hannibal, a.k.a. Hannibal Muhammad, a.k.a. Anybody Killer, a.k.a. Dave Austin, a.k.a. Anyway, so many aliases, right? When they start reading that shit in open court, it doesn't look good for you, a.k.a. Bear Claw, for a violation of 18 U.S. Code Section 1962D, racketeering, influence, and corrupt organizations, conspiracies. And what they're doing now is they're treating them like organized crime. It makes it easier to prove and to get them off the street. And I guarantee you some of these guys are probably already in prison. How do they build a case like this? Well, how do you think? Two ways: snitching and self-snitching. So the sources to build the case include confidential human sources, surreptitious recordings, in other words, wiretapping, including Title III wiretaps, search warrants for social media, iCloud and Google accounts, financial records from both individuals and companies and organizations, toll records showing communications between conspirators, victims, and Big U Enterprise members and associates, cell site location information from numerous phones, including Henley's, these guys, City of Los Angeles records, public filings, and other publicly available information, and interviews of witnesses and victims. The investigation employed various additional investigative techniques, including surveillance, vehicle tracking, poll cameras, recording devices, interaction with confidential sources, and information gleaned through undercover purchases of firearms and narcotics. So they're going to have video and audio of transactions. Here's some guns. Guess what happens with a gun? It's a 5-year mandatory minimum on top of whatever the underlying conviction is. It's called 924C. And the issue with this is this is going to be a document-intensive case and a discovery-intensive case. It's not going to just be talking. It's not going to just be witnesses. But they're going to have plenty of those too. So just when you think your brother next to you is your friend, all of a sudden he shows up on the witness stand because he's fucked if he doesn't. So the United States District for the Central District of California authorized multiple Title III wire and electronic interception orders for telephones being used by certain subjects of the investigation, including Henley and some of these other guys. The court also authorized interception of audio and visual nonverbal conduct via closed-circuit TV through installation of video and audio bugs in a location. So what does that tell you? Remember what got John Gotti? There was a surreptitious recordings that they had the social club. Well, they went up above the social club that they had, and they were hanging out in this woman's apartment, and they put the recording devices in that apartment, and John Gotti is heard on the recording wanting to order a hit on somebody. So let me tell you something about the federal government. The federal government is patient, motivated, and competent. We're talking about, probably a 5-year investigation. No Jumper, which we were on No Jumper, or I was on, Michael and I were on No Jumper a while back. They released a statement. In addition to DJ Vlad, also expressed shock at the allegations against Big U, which he denied. In fact, Vlad claimed that Henley alleged that he was never part of the Rolling 60s neighborhood Crips gang at the center of the Rico case. He also suggested that snitches and the spread of incriminating evidence on social media is what possibly led to this, not any specific media coverage. And here's the thing, the media doesn't cover this shit at all. I don't ever hear anything about this. All these statements line up with Adam 22's response to similar accusations claiming that No Jumper had nothing to do with the case. The outlet's name reportedly appeared various times in the indictment due to Brick Baby's previous work with them. So this is Adam 22. I'm not seeing anything that says anything. I'm not seeing anything that says anything about stuff he did in the last 2 years since he's been fucking with us. Adam 22 said of Brick Baby. I do employ people from the streets. People from the streets sometimes get caught up in federal RICO indictments or whatever the fuck this shit is. We're going to be documenting the whole thing, helping them along the way. Anybody acting like this is because of No Jumper. No Jumper is the antidote. So there you go with that. So what is the responsibility of media outlets when it comes to figures like Big U manufacturing an air of intimidation in the Rolling 60s if these media outlets employ people from the gangs that are at risk? Well, what is the responsibility? One of the things, if somebody comes on your program and they release information or if they have their own podcast, anything they say is fair game. It's statements of a party opponent, so it comes into evidence. And here's why it's important when you see the pervasive nature of what these guys are doing. They ran a thing called a check-in, and this is in the indictment. Henley and the Big U Enterprise are widely known for requiring what's called a check-in for out-of-town entertainers or gang members in Los Angeles. So if you have a big enough organization, the Rolling 60s was decent size, and you are intimidating people like anybody that's coming into town, as Henley described in the docuseries, if I don't answer the phone, it can be death for someone else. Everywhere, there's someone like me, and you can't put a monetary value on his touch in hip-hop. After more than 3 decades as Rolling 60s members and several years managing famous hip-hop artists, Henley was widely regarded as an original gangster or OG. In the docuseries, record producer Andre Young, a.k.a. Dr. Dre, explained that it's very helpful to have an OG who can clear the streets with this operating environment. Henley instituted the concept of the check-in when hip-hop artists and other celebrities visit Los Angeles. So here's how it works. The individual must check in or meet with the local street representative of said city to pay a tax or a fee for permission to both to move about freely and to have an event or conduct business in that other city without the risk of harassment doesn't it sound just like the fucking mafia? It sounds just like it if it's happening. Keep in mind, they deserve the presumption of innocence. Now, all we're doing is just reporting on what the indictment says. We're not putting a comment on the guilt or innocence of any particular person. So let's continue. While Henley and other supporters attempt to persuade the public that the check-in provides safety and security for those who do so, as set forth herein, Henley and Big U Enterprise also manufacture the very danger they purport to protect. In other words, you don't pay the tax, you're going to pay the price. So let's just continue a little bit more. And I know I'm kind of reading a lot here, but it's kind of important so you get a flavor of what they're talking about. Henley also provided examples of individuals who do not check in with him until it's too late, such as the rap artist Taquan Terrell Bowman, a.k.a. Quando Rondo, when Henley discussed in another interview who was later targeted in a murder-for-hire plot where his associate was killed. When defending this practice in interviews, Henley had... Interviews? What is that? That's self-fucking-snitching. When defending this practice in interviews, Henley has stated that it is no different than when a Learjet flies over the United States airspace. They want to know who you are. You're not a fucking government organization, baby. You're just not. Henley said his practice is no different, which I believe indicates that he purports to own and control Los Angeles through the Big U Enterprise. So he said, now Henley had his own fucking podcast called The Check-In. So there's no such thing as check-in? Let's talk about your podcast called The Check-In. The opening theme, when you hop off the plane, check in. Penthouse suite, check in. When your feet hit the street, check in. Because if you're not, shit get hot. You better check in. And who said that? This is the beginning of his podcast.
When you hop off the plane, check in. Penthouse suite, check in. When your feet hit the street, check in. Cause if not, shit get hot, you better check it in.
Welcome to the West Side. Checking in.
Welcome to the West Side. Checking in. The indictment describes an incident involving rappers Wiz Khalifa, T.I. Harris, and other artists who were booked to appear at Los Angeles nightclubs, right? And Henley demanded $30,000 cash from the promoter plus 30% of the proceeds at the fucking door. The rappers were no-shows, but Henley demanded the money anyway. And so, I mean, this is just your typical mafia shakedown. I mean, it's they didn't invent this. The Italians did it a long time ago. Henley reportedly said that they were going to be 5,000 in his motherfucker, and that's going to be pulling up. And if we got to tear the motherfucker up, we're going to tear it up. So be ready for that. Be ready for that. Bring me the money. So when the rappers didn't show up, Henley and his associates took the promoter into the back room of the club where they were paid $30,000. $30,000 for nothing. According to a cooperating witness, a.k.a. a snitch, AB and his associates fixed the dice game and cheated NBA players out of millions of dollars using teased dice. You know, I mean, you don't hear, some guys you don't hear of going out for work. You know what work is. It's women. Following that game, Henley directed a group of Big U Enterprise associates to rough up AB, who did not check in with Henley, and to get the money back from them on behalf of the NBA players. Multiple persons involved in the incident who were interviewed by the feds, including former NBA players, confirmed that Henley was paid $100,000 for negotiating a return of the debt. In another 2022 incident, NBA players got into it with boxer AB after AB cheated a current NBA star out of $1.5 million and a former NBA All-Star out of $5 million. God, Henley charged the NBA players $100,000 to get their money back from AB. The current and former NBA All-Stars star players were identified as Draymond Green of the Golden State Warriors and retired NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal. I mean, these are not little dollars we're talking about. And these aren't little figures that we're talking about.
Checking in is just a way of letting people know where you're at so you can get robbed.
That's fact. We know when you're getting off the plane. We know what hotel or Airbnb you're going to. You shouldn't do it at all. Come on the plane, get 2 hotel rooms, 1 for partying in, and then 1 to sleep in. And do not get no Airbnb. That's easy access. These young, they're starving.
Checking in.
What the fuck? That's good advice, and I would tell anybody to do the same thing. So, so, I am the task master at telling everybody not to self-snitch. But this whole check-in thing is part of the control and organization that is a foray into other crimes.
Movie production in the hood. That's how we do it, man.
Top flight, baby. Security.
GB running this here movie set in the hood.
Come on out here.
Coming out here and checking in with GB, getting these movies done. You better know it.
So how are you going to say that there's no such thing as a check-in when you're doing a self-snitching video saying that they're checking in?
Sure. Anytime you want to do movies in the hood, just check it in. We can make sure it's done. Movies, videos. But if you don't check it in,
Oh, well. Just gonna check your ass out.
we're going to check you in, all right? We're going to check in all of your equipment. We're going to check in all of your equipment.
And I think the Jewish people call it chutzpah. You know, I mean, the chutzpah that you have, and he's laughing, because guess what? If it ain't online, it didn't happen, right? And so, I mean, that is what we have what we call total self-snitching. So, but I mean, that's not the only one. So Big U says to Flacco that if he wants to visit the Rolling 30s territory, he has to make a donation to the hood. Big U tells him that it's $1,500 if he wants to make that happen. Should we go see if we have to go there and not check in? No, I'm not fucking doing that. So we did some work on Quando Rondo in the past, and in early 2021, Big U, who is a well-known figure in the Los Angeles gang culture and a former Rolling 60's Crip, probably current, spoke about Quando Rondo reaching out to him for protection after the King Von shooting in November 2020. Quando Rondo was affiliated with NBA YoungBoy's crew, was involved in the altercation where King Von was killed by Quando Rondo associate Lil Tim. Big U mentioned in an interview that Quando Rondo had contacted him for support, but only after the situation had escalated. Why the fuck would you say that on camera? I mean, this Big U is just, he likes his celebrity status.
The youngsters get out and then they have to have an experience before they realize I should have checked in.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Or I should have called, or I should have been moving.
Here's why that check-in thing is so important to their organization. It is a steady stream of cash flow. You don't check in, I don't collect the tax.
A certain way. And so they get out and they might be under your banner, but then they not respecting the banner. They ain't calling you. They got your number. Mm-hmm. They know who you is, but they feel like they bigger than the program. And you got a lot of dudes, like when I was here last time, that claim my neighborhood that's in this music shit, but they don't really fuck with us until it's a problem. Then they call them. Like Quando Rondo. I just showed Envy. Like, you can't call me now. You can't call me when the fire hot. Mm-hmm. You didn't fuck with me before that. You know what I mean? You have my number.
Tell me that just doesn't sound like control. And that is what the indictment is trying to prove, and the government is trying to prove.
You could have called me, you could have did all that. You know what I mean? But he was around about. But how is that fair to me? How is that?
I mean, here's the deal: if I was going into L.A., into their territory, I suppose I probably would check in, just because you wouldn't want the hassle and the repercussion of not checking in. And that's what they're designed to do. It's like he forgot what he was doing was illegal. I mean, and it's total self-snitching. And every one of these videos, every one of these Instagram posts, every one of these, you got to check in or it's going to get hot, all that shit is going to bite him in the ass. Loose Cannon, he was, and now this episode has been deleted evidently. He was a No Jumper. He talks about the robbery of a dispensary. What gets said in the podcast ends up in the indictment. Watch this.
So basically, it's like, cause he'll be like he'll manipulate things. Like, we'll go and do something, and the same niggas we do it to show up to the house like 10 minutes later when we trying to counting everything, right? And we be like, how the fuck they get that? Oh, well, we're going to just give them like $40,000 back and stuff like that. But because it's actually putting us in paperwork, right? And
why in the hell are you saying this on? I mean, if you're so smart to rob somebody and get big money, how come you're not smart enough to keep your fucking mouth shut?
And like doing like real police shit. I seen a nigga get like 20 guns. And when he got 20 guns, he's selling them to the homies, but I'm like, why are you writing down the serial numbers? So it's like he was doing like shit like that, and I didn't catch on. So it was like, I'm waking up now. You get what I'm saying? Because
you've been asleep a long fucking time.
This is high-tech shit.
I'm his right-hand man. You get what I'm saying? So when it came down to like dirt and stuff like that,
I'm his right-hand man. How do you back off of that when you're in trial?
Like that, I'm gonna get it. You get what I'm saying? And then, like, one day,
you know why he wanted to get a dude back to 40, right?
Dude, I don't like it when you do things that hurt you. I mean, I just don't. But give me a break. Now listen to this. So this is from the indictment. Okay, we went from that video clip now to the indictment. According to Victim 1, when Victim 1 arrived at Henley's Arlington premises, Robinson, Williams, and other robbers were there, as were the proceeds of the robbery. Inside, Henley told Victim 1, "That's how you rob yourself." Henley then demanded $10,000 from Victim 1 to ensure other robberies did not occur. Henley also directed Victim 1 to identify other businesses or dispensaries that could be similarly robbed, and assured Victim 1 that the Big U enterprise would compensate him for identifying any robberies. And if you do that, you're in Dutch with them as well. Henley then provided a portion of the robbery proceeds back to, by the way, you can have some of your fucking money back. But here's why this is important. Now, remember, we just watched that video clip. Williams later admitted to this robbery and the aftermath on a podcast. On the No Jumper podcast, after stating that Williams was Henley's right-hand man, Williams explained, so basically he'll manipulate things. We'll go and do something, and then the same fellas we do it to show up at the house like 10 minutes later as we're trying to count everything. We just saw that. So that wound up in the indictment. So you can't make this shit up. And you can't make it any easier for law enforcement. So central to the accusations in this indictment is the murder of a 21-year-old aspiring rapper signed to Henley's unique, UNEEK, label, a music label, Rayshawn Williams. According to court documents, the dispute escalated when Rayshawn recorded a diss track aimed at Henley, leading to an altercation that resulted in RW being shot, or Rayshawn Williams being shot and left dead in a ditch off of Interstate 15. So you've got, racketeering, you got extortion, you got murder, you got drugs, you got all kinds of things that are endemic. So, and this is where it talks about that in the indictment. On January 20, 2021, 5 days before the murder and 3 days before Henley and Robinson drove from Los Angeles to Las Vegas, RW recorded a diss, short for disrespect, song at NLVPD, later obtained. So they got the diss track. In it, RW, Rayshawn Williams, rapped about the person who had the money, that RW would be shot in the face for thinking it shit funny, and referenced a .38 revolver with no trace. And now this 21-year-old is fucking dead because he did this diss track. Based on my knowledge of this investigation and a conversation with others, I believe, and this is the agent in the affidavit, in this diss song, RW was dissing Henley, referring to Henley as the bro that makes some money, and that the RW must get shot in the face, not with a shit pistol, but shot in the face with a .38, for thinking his lackadaisical use of the studio and general representation by unique music is funny. RW was shot days later in the face, apparently with a revolver, like a .38, that left no shell casings. That's one of the things that, if you shoot with a semi-automatic handgun, it spits out casings. If you shoot with a revolver, it keeps them in the gun, so you don't have any casings at the crime scene. Remember, so this is a multimedia myriad of evidence. So you've got Henley himself stated on an intercepted call, I'm going to use the word fella, can't no fella beef with me, fella, because if he do, I'm going to kill him, period. I'm going to murder him. That is his way of saying, I'm a badass. I'm the toughest fella, and here my body of work to prove it. So this isn't a song. This is not a song. This is, and I'm the only fella still killing fellas today. You fellas retired. I didn't. They understand that. So you've got him self-snitching on a phone call. So here's, it's because nobody's been watching him, and that's why he hasn't gotten caught so far. But now you've got at least one or two murders at least. You've got these defrauded charities and just takes the money and put puts it right in his own account. You've got defrauding the city. You've got, COVID funds. You've got, and the theft part of this is really a pittance compared to the other things. If you're convicted on that, you can get up to 20 years because that's the statutory limit on Rico. But if you take the murders and you can prove those murders up in connection, you can get life. And in some cases, you can get the death penalty, federally speaking, of course. So all I got to tell you is we'll follow this. There's one more little tidbit in here, and that is the murder of Nipsey Hussle.
You talked about signing Nipsey. I mean, obviously, aside from being from the same area, how did you guys how did that end up, happening? And you told the story a lot before, so just kind of give us a quick,
Yeah.
If he had anything to do with this whatsoever, he shouldn't be talking about it.
My nephew TD, I was looking for artists. TD told me to go get Nip. I went and seek Nipped out of all the people I already been interviewing and talking to, and he was the shining light. He was the diamond in a pile of whatever.
Right.
He was a diamond. Let me respect to my other homies. He was a diamond in a pile of other diamonds, but he
was a bigger diamond.
He was a shine.
Yeah. He was,
and then
he was the VVS.
He was the VVS.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And we had made a couple of moves and was trying to move through a couple of doors, and I vastly found out that I couldn't go through these doors. So that's when I went and got Steve Lobel. And I went and got Steve, let Steve hear the music. Steve felt the same way I felt about the music. And I was like, boom. So I signed Nipsey to Unique Music, to my
It's UNEEK.
To Aramis Astrodome, to my label, to Unique Music. And then Steve was 10% management and I was 10% management because it didn't make no sense for us to go get another manager.
Right.
And so we started pushing on that. So I signed him to it. It was signed to a 10-year production contract, which started in 2009, which would end 2019.
Crazy.
Hello. But
so you see that little hello. That's not a good look.
I ain't tripping off of that because it is what it is. But I do have that. You know what I mean? So
wait, so your deal with Nipsey was 10 years.
It was 10 years.
It was a 10
years, 25% of publishing to Aramis Astrodome.
Oh wow. So 09 to 2019.
09 to 2019.
And they're going to use this in the trial. I guarantee it.
So technically, Victory Lap.
Hello.
Okay. Wow.
So now watch him on No Jumper.
So he FaceTimed me and stuff like that. He was like, Nipsey just got killed. I'm like, 6-0. I didn't hear that. So I hang up with him. I called Nipsey, and I'm like, Nipsey, what's up? He was like, oh, what's up with it?
Nipsey answered.
Nipsey answered. He answered the phone. So after I talked to Nipsey, and I was like, yeah, I love you, cuz, or whatever like that. I'll see you later or whatever. So I hung up the phone. I thought Big U gave wrong information. 30 minutes later, the homies blowing me up like they just killed Nipsey.
You get a call from Big U telling you Nipsey just got killed.
Yeah.
You panic, call Nip. Nip answered the phone.
Yeah.
And 30 minutes after you get off the phone with Nip, he get killed.
Yeah.
Why is he talking about this on a broadcast?
I got it.
So you think he hit you a little too early?
Yep, he hit me a little bit too early because the homie Shitty.
This is fair game. This is absolute fair game. And guess what? If he doesn't testify, how would this come in? Wouldn't it be hearsay? No, it wouldn't be hearsay because it's a conversation between co-conspirators. That's not hearsay in the federal world. All right, we're going to do one more of these. And this is loose cannon, or we should say loose lips, because he's going to sink his own ship. And listen to what he has to say about the PNB Rock murder.
Rock got killed in the
Roscoe's.
Yeah.
So I felt it was like super messed up because at the end of the day, it was me and Big Useless in there when it happened. So when it happened, I wish I could have just told him, like, bro, just give up the jury and we get it back to you later. But it just happened so fast, and he wasn't.
He's telling you that he's part of this. So let's say you and I agree to rob a liquor store, but I don't know you have a gun. And, you know, I'm not there for a murder. I'm just there for the cash that's in the register. But you fucking shoot somebody anyway. Guess what? Part and parcel of the whole thing. So if he's doing the negotiating for somebody to check in and they get shot for not checking in, he's guilty of aiding and abetting his murder.
He wasn't cooperating. And that's when they took it off of him by force. You get what I'm saying?
What do you say to a person who won't give up their jury when something like that's happening?
No, give it up and then check in with the real people. So,
and what is that? Checking with the real people. So, okay, I just got robbed. Now I'm going to go in and check in with the people because I probably got robbed by you guys. And so I'm going to go check in with you guys, and you're going to take a portion and give me something back. And then he got killed because of that.
We're going to find a jury, and we're going to get it because we know all the pawn shops, we know all the people that's going to melt it down and everything like that. So as soon as it comes on their table, we got it. Okay, get it, go in that back room, make that phone call, put them on the phone. That's how it works.
On a podcast talking about this. So Big U's detention hearing is for March 31st, and his arraignment set for April 8th. So here's what happens in the detention. You know, it's presumed detention. In other words, the types of crimes that they're being accused of require detention unless the defense can rebut that presumption. In other words, he'd have to, like NBA Youngboy did, he had to put on some evidence that he has sufficient guarantees that he's going to show up for court and protect the public. And if P. Diddy didn't get out, these fuckers aren't getting out either. And then April 8th is the arraignment. That's just where you plead not guilty, and then they set your trial and that kind of thing. So you watch what's going to happen here. I don't know what's going to happen. You know, I'm sure he's got good lawyers. You know, and he's presumed innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But you heard from their own words, from their own mouths, that, you know, what they're doing and how they're making people check in, how they're extorting people, how when they don't cooperate, they fucking kill them, you know, and they take shit by force. And guess what happens when you force, you know, when you stand up to them, you get killed. And they like that. They like that rep, right? They like that reputation because that gives their whole operation legitimacy and credibility and makes people bow to their whims. So we'll follow this, and we'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts. If you're in LA, fucking check in. Although, if they're detained, you probably don't have to check in. I don't know. So make sure you subscribe, follow us on Instagram, follow us on Twitter, follow us on, sign up for Patreon, and go to CLRBruceRivers.com for all your merch needs. And when you're in Minneapolis, you don't have to check in. We'll see you next time here on Criminal Lawyer Reacts.
Bruce Rivers just broke down your case. He know all the charges that you about to face. You ain't coming home till 2058.